Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast. So today, sorry for getting this episode out a little bit late, but our schedule from now on is going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, regular episodes, and then Sunday will be a live stream. So with all that said, today we're going to be talking about a topic that's been, discussed for a couple days now. Haven't had a chance to record, but Mike Shildt, the former Cardinals manager, he was just fired. He's been brought up as a potential guy for the Padres. Isaac, start off with you, man. What do you think about the idea of bringing him in as the new manager?
I don't mind it. I know that people say there were, he even said there were philosophical differences regarding him in the front office, especially regarding analytics and how the Cardinals wanted to take a step forward in that department, but he wasn't necessarily willing to. Now, I don't think that means that he wasn't using analytics as a big factor in his coaching. I just think he wasn't willing to do more than what he was already doing. The matter of the fact is that he took over that team, and ever since then, I'm pretty sure they've had a winning record each season. They've done really well. They've been, the Cardinals are always in contention, and he's one of the main reasons why. I think if you look at that roster from top to bottom, that roster is nothing special. We saw in the 60-game season, we eliminated them, but at the end of the day, come back to a 162-game season, there they are again in the wild card game. One of the only teams that I can remember in my lifetime that ripped off 17 games in a row. I don't know if I even remember a team doing that. 17 games in a row, and here we are with Jace Tingler going like 26 and 40-something after the All-Star break, something like that, around that area. So, I mean, when you look at all the managerial candidates, if it's Mike Shildt, you absolutely cannot be mad considering how massive of an upgrade I think that personally is. I don't know what his thoughts on analytics are or anything. I feel like that'll come out as time goes, but I would like to hire. I don't think it's a bad hire. He's won 90 games. He won 90 games this year. His team looked good. His team battled towards the end, and he's a player's manager, and that's what I like.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree with you, man. See, I'm not too worried. Oh, I am worried about what he means by he doesn't want to stick to as much analytics. He backed his guys up. That was a really big thing for me because we saw Tingler. He didn't really do that with his players. He did it a little more this season, but last year you kind of saw that he took whatever stance that he could to be on Preller's side, more the front office, making sure that they look good, not the players. And if the players kind of showed them up, was kind of a bad thing. And then I do think there is a case of letting analytics take over too much. Like we saw with Kevin Cash in the World Series 2 years ago. Like Blake Snell was having the game of his life. The analytics said to take him out. But as a manager, you should be right there and be like, you know what? This guy is probably having the game of his life right now in the biggest moment of his life. And we're going to let him continue to go through that because honestly, I don't think there's a better option in that bullpen right now. But that's not what they did. And guess what? It cost them the World Series. So I'm okay with the manager going against analytics as long as it's passing the eye test. Like Blake Snell, an example, would be that perfect spot. If Mike Shildt would be like, you know what? Yeah, he's getting around the third time, but he's balling out. He's honestly shutting down the other teams better than what I think the bullpen's capable of. And he continued going with that instead of going with analytics. I'd be okay with that because you can be over analytical and it's hurt teams at times. So as long as there's a fair mix of him being the manager and him not relying too much on analytics, but keeping analytics in the whole bubble of things, I'm okay with it. Because, honestly, I kept saying I thought the Cardinals were overrated last year. I did not. They overperformed for me. I didn't have them making playoffs, I think. I think I had Brewers winning that division and then maybe the Cardinals sneaking into the wild card spot, but I really didn't think they were supposed to be there. So, and the whole 17 wins in a row, not many teams are capable of doing that. And at the end of the day, he's the manager that managed that. He brought the Cardinals to the postseason 3 times. And this year, he somehow managed to get the Cardinals over 90 wins, which I think that's a very big thing to consider because I honestly didn't think the Cardinals were going to get above 85 wins.
Chase, I think it's really important that you bring up like the idea of almost like overusing analytics. And I think all of us, I mean, our first episode of our Fixing the Padres series was like, hey, we need to fix this. Like there needs to be fundamental changes. But you bring up Kevin Cash, another guy, Jared Weaver, basically came out and said like, I forgot what his tweet was, but it was something along the lines of like, yep, like analytics are not always going to work or something like that. And it was, I forgot what it was for, but it was something earlier this postseason. So like, you see that players are like, hey, like sometimes you got to ride with your guy. And I think that's where it's different, where it's like, all right, yes, the analytics might say to pull him, but I can look at him and I can go, we need to make an adjustment to that. I think like for me, like analytics should be like the game plan, right? And the manager makes adjustments off of that. It shouldn't be, oh, we're going to try to build this thing through analytics and our manager's decisions. Like it should be like, okay, like this is what is supposed to be the best, but how are we going to alter that? Or do we need to alter that? Like that. And so those should be more of the questions that should be asked, where like in that case, they're like, hey, we need to, revamp the staff. Cause that's what was said. Like, oh, they wanted to revamp the staff because of like different like philosophies in the analytics department. He's going, no, like these are my guys. I need them because I've seen this guy do this. That's a must have. And not every, for instance, like I've seen this pitching coach make this adjustment with these young pitchers. Not every pitching coach is going to be able to do that. If you take this guy from me, I don't feel comfortable moving forward. It could be something like that. So I think it's like, it's hard to look into it and go, oh, he's an anti-analytics guy. I don't think that's what it was. I think it was more of like, he didn't want them to fire his staff. And that was an adjustment that he is making off of analytics. So I like the hire if that's how it is. Now, say I'm wrong and it's not like, he's just not like, he's like, oh, like these analytics are dumb or whatever. Then I won't, then this statement is not, it's not relevant. So I think if that's the case, I think that it's a fine idea to hire him. He's been very successful. Like you said, in 2020, they made the playoffs. They were 30-28. 2019, they were 91-71. So like he's been really good as the manager. He has a 559 winning percentage, and the Cardinals are good, but they're not great. And to me, that's probably overperforming. And especially like they recently had Arenado. So they haven't had him for the whole time that he's been there. So I think that he's overperformed there. And I like the idea of hiring him. But what do you guys think about, just because like this is an analytics discussion, just because of the past, but what do you think about that? Like you take like the game plan is like, all right, this is what the analytics say our lineup should be. This should be where these guys are playing, blah, blah, blah. And then, this guy should come out at this time. But do you want to make that adjustment? Is that how it should look? Should it look like the manager is making those adjustments? I mean, you guys played more baseball than me, so.
No, I mean, I feel like in the game, in this stage of the game in the MLB, people get caught up too much with the numbers and what the analytics show over what's actually going on in the game. If your pitcher, for example, Blake Snell, Chase brought up Blake Snell. If your pitcher is pitching that good, he looks like he's just dominating on all phases. Why are you going to take him out in the fifth? You're taking out your best starter in the fifth for the failed starter out of the bullpen. I mean, that's just what it is. Like he was pitching fantastic, and you took him out because statistics show that the Dodgers do this well on their third plate appearance, or Blake Snell's numbers show that on their third plate appearance, the average spikes up. Whatever it is, you get caught up with the numbers rather than what's actually going on in the moment. So I personally do not think that analytics should play that big of a part to where you're taking out your best guy in the key situation where he's pitching that dominant. And I think analytics mostly revolve around like analytics for hitting. I understand, launch angle, all that kind of stuff. If a hitter's better against righties or lefties, if you take him out because this guy is worse against lefties and this guy's better against lefties, I understand that like completely. When it comes to pitching, I don't think you can get caught up in the moment that much. So I think analytics do play a part, but I think it plays a part on there's levels to it.
So you're saying it should be like a foundation that everything else is built upon?
Yeah, I guess you can say that. I also think that I've never done the analytics stuff or whatever it is also, but I just think I like playing in the moment. I like seeing what's going on right there. If my pitcher's in there just balling out, I'm not going to take him out because this is what my numbers are showing me. I think I just think that's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah, but you also like believe in like, I mean, a lot of the stuff like we've talked about, like defensive war. Like there are people that
of
legit like
course,
do not
yeah,
follow that. So yeah, like so you're saying like there should be adjustments then, right?
there has to be adjustments made in every single game, in football, basketball, whatever it is. There should be the manager has to prepare themselves for any sorts of adjustments, no matter what. And in baseball, that's especially true. Considering you got to take guys in and out on the fly. For example, you see in the playoffs right now, Walker Buehler, their best pitcher, did not look like he had his stuff in a regular season game, or like a fan would see it. And we're thinking, oh man, like, why are you taking him out so early? Just let him settle down. But in reality, he did not have his best stuff at all. And that's the way it's kind of been all postseason. So, of course, they were going to take him out that early. And I don't know, Max Scherzer, he didn't look like he had his stuff either. And I'm sure people were thinking the same thing. I was even thinking the same thing. Why are they taking him out so early? His stuff didn't look dominant. I failed to see that he was only throwing 93. So there's instances where stuff is right like that, but I don't believe analytics are like the main thing about baseball. You're taking away just the pure thought that goes into a baseball game, just looking into the numbers.
Yeah, there is always going to be that human element that always proves analytics wrong. You can't just go into the year and be like, okay, we have all these OPSs down. This is what our batters should do. Guys are either going to live up to that, be beyond it, or be below it. It's just how people are. Analytics can only take you so far. You definitely have to have a manager that can be very flexible with everything, do his own kind of eye test with everything. This guy plays this position better. This guy hits better here. Analytics may say that he should be hitting better here, but realistically, he's hitting better here. Let's not move him from this spot. It's great to build fundamentals for like pitching with spin rates. It's good for mechanics. It's good for launch angle, expecting batting average, and kind of seeing which guys are underperforming, which guys are overperforming. Because we look at us, we use Baseball Savant. We kind of said like, hey, Ryan Weathers, according to his Baseball Savant numbers, the analytics don't really like this guy. And you know what? The analytics were right. They hated that guy for a reason, and we saw it in the second half. But then you look at other things, and you're like, well, this guy's overperforming. This guy's underperforming. With the analytics that he has shown, he's had these same analytics on Baseball Savant for his entire career. He just had a down year. He was just unlucky. You take those analytics, you plug in, you sign that guy, and all of a sudden you get a career year out of him. That's what the big teams do. They take guys that have had bad years or a bad year and a contract year. They sign them for less money because nobody wants them because they think it's the downfall of their career, and they turn them around. You see that with Max Muncy. You see that with Chris Taylor. You see that with a bunch of Rays players. You see it with Marcus Semien is probably the biggest example of that. That man hit the most home runs by a second baseman. Go ahead.
And Matt just said it, Musgrove.
Yeah, Musgrove. Like, you look at these and you're like, the analytics got this right. They got it right for a reason. There's underlying numbers that prove that these guys were underperforming or just unlucky. The Padres didn't seem to do that. They're like, oh my God, big name. Trade the farm for him. And then they would come here and they would underperform. So you know what? I think analytics do have to play a role, but there's always going to be a human element in baseball that analytics can't predict, and it is the manager's job to deal with that human element. You can't just say analytics control the entire dugout. That's not how it's going to work. So I think Mike Shildt might be the perfect balance between it.
I like that. So yeah, I like Mike Shildt. We'll eventually do like our favorite managers too, because like we've talked about Bochy in the past, we've talked about Ron Washington, talked about Jeff Bannister. We've talked about a bunch of guys, but we'll do like a top 5 list. Eventually, probably gonna wait a little while, kind of see like what's up with the candidates. Also, we don't want to do like guys that are just not going to become the manager. Like they don't have a chance of that happening. Like if that came out about Bochy, like we wouldn't want to include him then. But very interesting analytics discussion, just because like we are all pro it, but the decision making thing is like it is different. It is much different, like in terms of like how you prepare and like how you look at free agents and stuff. And like you're saying, Isaac, like and both of you, like you have to know what move to make it every time, because even if the analytics say like, oh, keep this pitcher in right here, or take him out, whatever it is, if he doesn't look like he has his stuff, or he is just on another level one day where it's like you have to make that adjustment. You have to look at it and go, you know what? I don't think I want that there. Also, you don't like, I don't know. There's also, I feel like there's also sometimes can be an element too in like terms of like clutch moments. Like, do you want to put the guy that's played for 12 years, that's been in this moment multiple times? Or do you want to put in the guy that's a second-year player, has almost no postseason experience, and like, just barely gets beat out in terms of whatever it is against that, like against a lefty, like maybe he hits like 10 points higher. Like, is it really worth it? Like, is it really worth it for that tiny bit? And some people argue yes, and I think it's a fair argument to have, but I feel like I side with you guys a little bit, just because it's a little bit different than going like after free agents, or that's why we like Musgrove so much. It was like, hey, this guy's bound to have a career year. Like, look at like the way that his numbers match up, and then sure enough, he comes to San Diego and it looks great. So it's really interesting, and I think it's going to be changing for a while too. Like, there's going to be more and more that people make adjustments to. It'll probably take over baseball a lot more than it already has. So I'm super excited for it. Super excited for the idea of Mike Shildt as well. But we will make that top managers video soon. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk very soon.